Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
So this is a very long story. My old middle school does this thing called a candygram, and you pay for a note and a candy to be delivered to a friend. This was usually during the holiday/fundraising season, and overall, I never really got one. Yeah, I have plenty of friends, but what kind of middle schooler is going to pay $5 for that kind of stuff? Halloween of 2022, I was in my first class of the day, advisory, and like every other year, they were passing out these candygrams. Imagine my surprise when one was given to me. I initially assumed that it was from my best friend and that he just wrote something stupid on it. No, instead, it just said, "You're cute. Love, Anonymous." I was elated. Nobody ever had much interest in me at that point, and the thought of someone going out of their way and spending money on me was very flattering. I showed my friends, and then I moved on to the next class. Except this time, someone knows who Anonymous may be. They say that this girl in their advisory has a massive crush on me, but they won't tell me who. After a bunch of guessing, I settle on one person. Her name is Trisha, and she is a friend of a friend. Up to that point, I had only talked to her once during a gym period, and I had to be reminded of what she even looked like. The day goes on, and we have Halloween assembly and everything is normal. On my way out of the gym, I look behind me to see if any of my friends are nearby. And lo and behold, Trisha is standing behind me. And the reason that I remember this so vividly is because she slipped on a purge mask as soon as we made eye contact. I sound like a bad horror author, but I shit you not that this is what happened. Needless to say, I ran away and did some legendary trick-or-treating that night. The next day, I opened my locker to a pink folded up piece of construction paper, and it's a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, you are for me, and I love you. From Secret Lover. I'm looking at it as I type this right now, and I run over to my friend, and we are both bent over laughing because what the hell? The next weeks, I have about 2 notes in my locker every day, but here are the worst. 1. I watch you at your house because I can just imagine how our house would look like when we are married. What? 2. Your feet probably smell amazing. From the Watcher. She's never even been near my feet. 3. You smell nice. I have never been within 10 feet of this girl. 4. Hi love, it's me. I love you. Have a nice day. Stalker. Why would you call yourself Stalker? 5. I apologize for the creepy ones. Well, she knows she was doing something weird. And 6. I'm sorry, baby boy. I just love you so much and I need to be with you. Stalker. These are all word for word, and I am staring at the pile of them right now. She kept switching sign-offs to either the Watcher, Secret Lover, Anonymous, and Stalker. Why would you ever call yourself a stalker? Most times, my friends would see her slip the notes into my locker during passing period, and once, I even saw her do it myself. In about a week, all my friends know every detail of this fiasco, and they all found it pretty funny. Honestly, I did too. Remember that friend of a friend? Well, her and I are very close, and she lives within 5 minutes walking distance of my house. She said when her and Trisha were hanging out, she kept bringing me up and asking questions about my family. Then, she asked if my friend would show her my house. My friend insisted that she wouldn't, but Trisha was persistent. No matter how many times she said no to Trisha, she would ask and ask. My friend never did tell her my address, and she kicked Trisha out of her house. That same friend then added me to a Google document that Trisha's friend group used to talk throughout the school day, and every single thing was about me. What I was wearing that day, who I was walking with, and how Trisha and I would make such a good couple. Trisha even wrote down my mom's license plate numbers in her document. I wish I had screenshots, but even if I did, I don't have that device anymore. Mind you, I was 12 at the time that this was all happening, so I was very stupid, and I make my presence known in the document. I don't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of, "What the hell?" And I add my best friend to the document, and he starts putting on a performance, claiming that we are a couple and Trisha needs to back off. Trisha says sorry, and it is all quiet for a few days. I then go back to the document to see if anything else has happened, but now it's just Trisha and I in it. She tells the story of how she was up all night crying while writing me an apology or love letter, and how she threw it in a fire. I have no clue why she felt the need to share all of this. And now, I decided that I was going to the counselor. I'm sad to admit that, up to that point, I thought that it was all really entertaining, but something about her burning things fucked with me. After I tell this whole tale to the counselor, Trisha gets pulled out of class. But guess what? They didn't delete the document. I'm still baffled that all she got was a reprimand, but was still left with a way to contact me. She says a bunch of weird shit that I have blocked out at this point, but I remember her saying that when they said my name during her getting in trouble, if you can even call it that, she had a huge pit in her stomach. Needless to say, I removed myself from that document and I didn't give her any more attention. Mind you, throughout this whole thing, I have never spoken to her in person. She continued to stare at me during lunch the rest of that year and ask people really weird questions about me, but thankfully that has stopped now that we are in high school. I occasionally see her in the halls, and I just walk as quickly as I can past her. So Trisha, let's not meet again. Hi everyone. I've had a few encounters with creepy people in my life, and this is just one of many. I apologize in advance as I'm not very good at writing. So I, 18 female at that time, were out with my friends drinking in random fields. We had such a fun time. There were around 10 of us, I think. We were up in a wooded area as we didn't want any weirdos coming up to us out in the open. After a long night, we all decided to head home. By this time, it was around 2 to 3 in the morning, and after a long walk, it got to a point where a few of us had to go take a different route to get to our houses. We all lived in a small town, so the walk wasn't very long. After a few of our friends had separated, it left me and my 2 other friends to walk home in our own group. We got to a point where we crossed the road to a bus stop. Inside the bus stop, there was a man. He was wearing those balaclavas and a gray tracksuit on and smoking something. I live in the UK, so his dress attire wasn't exactly new to me. Once me and my friends had crossed the street, I looked behind me. I was confused as to why someone was stood by a bus station at 2:30-ish a.m. Buses in our area stop at 12 a.m. We kept on walking when I heard him growl at us. Yes, growl. And we were starting to sober up by this time, so we were all like, what the fuck? We started walking a little faster because who the hell growls at a bunch of random people? Maybe he was trying to be funny, but I don't know. Anyway, I looked behind me and I noticed that he was quite literally running toward us, so I whispered to my friends, "Guys, run! This guy's literally coming towards us at full speed." We froze for a second because we didn't want to make it obvious that we were scared, but I started running and they all follow and run with me. After about 1 minute of running, we turn into an alleyway and hide behind someone's bushed fence. We stay there for about 3 minutes, trying to collect our breath from running. And after that, we never saw him again. Maybe he lost track of us? Who knows? Either way, it was definitely creepy and really just weird. I don't know what we should have done or if we made the right decision to run like that. But like I said, this isn't the first time that I've experienced being chased at late hours of the night. I am very fortunate to live somewhere with beautiful walks nearby, so I like to get out and walk nearly every day. This place is also really safe, so it never crossed my mind that I would be in the position that I am currently in. It started last year. I don't keep a routine, but like I said, I like to get out and walk most days. It was a beautiful day. The paths were very busy with dog walkers, locals, and so on, just enjoying the weather and the scenery. I took my time and I didn't pay too much attention to anyone because, like I said, this was a super safe place. When I turned back for home, I was aware someone was walking behind me and not that close, so I assumed that they were just heading back the same way as me. That's not unusual, it's a very popular path. When I got home, I took my shoes off in the usual place, which is positioned so that I can see through the kitchen window, which points the same way as the front door. I then noticed that there was a man looking through the kitchen window and really looking into my kitchen. Not a quick glance, but taking in every detail. And then he moved away and then knocked on my front door. Now, I do not open the door unless I am expecting someone, and if it's just parcel, there's a strong chance that I'll just let them leave it in the safe space. I'd planned on ignoring him, but he knocked harder and said something close to, "I saw you get home." That gave me the impression that he wasn't going away, so I opened the door a crack and I kept my foot wedged so he couldn't open it any further. I'm a small woman and he's over a foot taller than me, strong, and he gave me a serious "you need to run away from him" vibes. He was carrying a slow cooker box, which struck me as odd, but I figured that he was taking it to a neighbor. And then he said, "I followed you home." Just right out with it. He gave me some story about how his mother used to live next door and he wanted to know how long I'd lived there. I told him that if he wants info on the neighbors on the side his mother supposedly lived in, then my neighbors on the other side had lived there for 50 years and they would be able to tell him everything. He was irritated by that answer and then switched tack. Then he kept trying to invite himself in for a cup of tea, and I politely but firmly told him to leave, and then I locked the door. I didn't go anywhere by myself for a couple of weeks, and I kept an eye out for him, but nothing. So I started going out by myself again. And there he was, and this time riding a bike. I don't precisely remember all the times, but it was something like this. I was wandering near my favorite spot, and he rode his bike around me in a big circle 3 times. He just watched me, and I gave him my best go rot in hell glare, and then he left. He kept popping up. The next time that I was on my way back from a shop, he said, "Hi." He then said my legal name and then added, "It's a nice evening." I don't remember giving him my legal name, and he just carried right on, so it was uncomfortable, but nothing horrendous. And I will note that he popped up on all of the different paths around here. There were a few more instances like that, 6, maybe 7 at a guess. But then, I did something stupid, and I went against my gut. It had been a long week, and I was dying for a walk to clear my head. It was winter, pitch black outside, but I needed something small from the shop. My gut told me don't do it, don't go out, and I had a horrible feeling before I even got my shoes on. But I ignored it and told myself that I was being stupid. It was a beautiful, safe area, and I was just being anxious and ridiculous. I got to the shop fine. I then hurried along and went to the place where he had ridden circles around me, as it's the start of a loop that's short but beautiful, which was what I needed. My gut kept telling me that it's bad to not do it, to just go home, but I hurried along. Then I was at the very darkest point, completely alone, and I saw a light coming towards me, a bike light, and of course, it was him. Now, I'll add at this point that I am very unflappable. I've been in bars and the like where guys got grabby. I've had guys much bigger than me threaten violence and try to steal from me. And every time, I squared up to them and I gave strong, "try it, I dare you" body language. And they cursed me out and I left, and I was completely unfazed. But that night though, I was seriously rattled. The vibes coming off this guy are bad, really bad, so I was cornered, nowhere to go but just to finish the loop. He rode around me and settled in to ride next to me, where he mentioned my address, my legal name, my pets, and gave me some history of his life before he started pushing how lonely he was. So very lonely. Won't I be his friend? He really wants me to go to his for a cup of tea. And then he casually mentioned how he'd watch me take my rubbish to the bins, which was something that I'd missed. I don't know how I didn't see him, but I didn't. I told him that my husband was expecting me home, but he didn't believe that I had a husband. I was polite with minimal responses until he gave up and then rode off, clearly irritated. I was really rattled. I rushed home and told my husband, who was surprised that it had bothered me so much because of the other stuff that I mentioned above. He witnessed a lot of that and saw how unfazed I was. We agreed that I wasn't going anywhere alone anymore. That was a few months ago. I said to my husband last week that now it's been a while and the paths are getting super busy again, that it might be safe for me to walk alone at the peak busy period. Then a few days ago, we were sitting on a bench, enjoying the scenery, when I felt this guy rock up. He stood about 20 feet away and just stared at us for a good 5 minutes. We didn't acknowledge him. We felt it was better that way. I should note that my husband's around 6'2", and he looks rough and ready for a brawl. He would take down anyone who worried me without a second thought, so I'm really lucky like that. But obviously, we don't want to start a fight out of nowhere in public. We're not stupid. When the stalker guy rode off, my husband said to me that he understood what I had been talking about. The vibes from stalker guy are seriously creepy, and they set my husband on edge. So that's how I returned to never leaving home alone again. And there's nothing that I can do about it because the police aren't going to act on, okay, but he seriously creeps me out. And my husband's not going to risk legal action against him by getting into a fight. Let me just say that I was young and dumb when I met him. I am 18 years old and I met him when I was 16. I was never in a relationship before him. I was a bigger girl and I just had an extremely hard time getting guys to like me. I met him on Snapchat. I didn't realize it then, but he had love bombed the hell out of me. I was so lost in the feeling of being wanted that I ignored the extreme red flags. After only a week of talking, he convinced me to meet him at his house to hook up. He lived almost an hour away from me and I was a new driver. Anyways, how we met is not the point. He showed extreme signs of being a narcissist and even admitted to me that he believes himself to be a sociopath. But I never let the red flags keep me from leaving him. He was possessive over me and manipulated me into believing that he was the only one there for me, made me cut off my friends, and even made me distance myself from my family. He cheated on me so many times, I caught him 3 times. He admitted to me that out of the 18 months that we were together, he was faithful for 3, which is bullshit. He cheated on me the entire time, I had evidence of which, but in the end, he kept lying to save his own ass. I have extreme abandonment issues due to my father. My abandonment issues aren't only about me. I have a deep fear of abandoning people who need someone, and I thought that he needed me. He was going into the Marines. His ship date was late June of 2024, and a few days before he shipped off, I proposed to him. I know, I'm fucking stupid. Don't get me started on how much I hate myself in this situation. But if you have ever been emotionally and psychologically abused, you can understand that you simply cannot think about yourself and your safety. You think about what is best for your abuser so that they are happy, so that they don't have a reason to abuse you. We made it through boot camp. We sent letters all 13 weeks. It felt so magical to know someone loved me enough to stay true to our relationship through something difficult as long-distance military relationship. I loved him so much that I saved money to drive down to California to see him graduate. It was amazing and what I thought were the best days of my life. He was still quiet and reserved. He always was. I never saw a problem with it because he was his true self when he was with me. When he came home from California, he lived with me. He had a bad relationship with his parents and made me believe that he had nowhere else to go. This was my mistake because once he moved in, I was truly trapped. He did RA late August to late October. He shipped back off to California for his schooling, and so started our long distance again. One morning in March of this year, I woke up and checked my phone, and if you have ever been cheated on and stayed, you just become paranoid. He had 2 Instagram accounts, one of which he blocked me on, so I created another Instagram account so that I can watch his followers and his posts. He started following more and more women. On that day, he had posted on his main account a story that was hidden from me. He posted a joke about cheating on your dumb girlfriend. You don't joke about shit that you have done. So again, I sent him a message explaining just how unfucking funny it was and how he knows how much that shit traumatized me. Afterwards, I was done. I messaged girls he followed on his other account and learned he was on dating apps. And after that, it was the end of us. There was 3 days of us communicating. On April 2nd, I took his belongings to his parents' house and I blocked him, and I told him to never contact me again. Everything was silent for a few weeks. I was healing. This man abused me for almost 2 years. He made me believe so many nasty things about myself and my family. I would go into more details, but at this point, this shit is just a novel. One night in late April, I got a text on my phone. Package arrived. I was confused, and I responded with a question mark. The number told me that there was something on my porch, and when I opened my door, there was a notebook sitting there. Mind you, it was 11 p.m. at night, so I am freaked the fuck out. Front to back, this notebook was filled with letters from my ex, and I refused to read it. He had gotten out of the Marines on a other than honorable discharge, and he moved to the city next to mine. He hated my town and how desolate it was, so he moved 20 minutes away from me just so he could be close. He could have moved anywhere, but he moved to a town that he hated just to be close to me. Also, he doesn't have a car, so he rode his bike 13 miles just to drop this on my porch. I gave the notebook to my parents and messaged the number back to never contact me again and to never come near my house, or else I would be calling the authorities, and then I blocked the number. And that night, I slept in my parents' bedroom and I cried so much. At 1:30 a.m., I got another message on my phone from a different number than before, saying, "Can you honestly tell me that you've enjoyed this past month?" It took this psycho 3 hours to have a new number and then start texting me again. I sent a very long nasty message describing just how great my life was without him and again told him not to contact me. I had to change my number, my garage code, and my front door code. And a few weeks later, I got 3 letters in the mail from him, all very possessive and nasty. One was also a suicide note, describing exactly how and why he killed himself. I called the city's dispatch and sent a wellness check. He was alive. He told the officer that he was just upset. I had done a lot to try to get him into some sort of mental care, but he refused time and time again. I told the officer to tell him directly that if he contacted me again in any way, that I would be filing for a stalking and harassment report. And lo and behold, a week or so later, I get a message on Facebook from a very, very fake account. All of its posts and information were clear indicators that it was him. Unfortunately, I had to read that notebook that he left on my porch. And holy fucking shit, when I say he is crazy, he is fucking crazy. In the notebook, he admitted to lying to me about attempting suicide, lied to me about being hospitalized, and lied to me about going into psych. He said that it was better for me to believe us breaking up made him suicidal. He also admitted to a lot of illegal activity, and that he cheated on every single girl that he was with. The whole notebook traumatized me even more, and I went to the police station and filed a report. 2 days after I filed the report, I got more letters in the mail from him. One admitted to him watching me from a hill outside my house, and the other was him trying to return our engagement rings that I left with his belongings. He told me that it was smart to change my phone number, but that I could not change my address, so he would keep sending me letters until he won me over again. The last 2 letters were sent from a different state. That means he moved away, and I am very happy that I don't have to worry about my physical safety anymore. But every week, I get more and more letters. He's obsessed with me, and I simply don't understand why. He cheated because some part of his brain wasn't satisfied with me, and now that he's without me, he's literally going crazy. I never want to see that man again. I am terrified of him. I still look over my shoulder, thinking that he will be there even though he moved. Every time that I get a call or text from a random number, I think that it's him, and I panic, even though I changed my phone number. I have nightmares of him. He mentally fucked me up so bad, and I can only realize that now that he's gone. I do hope that he stops sending me letters, or that he goes to jail. This will happen to another girl if he is not punished, and I want justice for myself, but I also want to protect that future girl. I truly, truly hate him, and I wish the worst for him. I'm an alcoholic, and I have been sober for 9 years. That is, without a doubt, my proudest accomplishment. I started getting help during my sophomore year of high school, and looking back, I am so grateful for the timing. If I had hit rock bottom later, things would have only gotten worse. My parents actually transferred me to a different school so that I could start fresh and meet new people. By the time that I turned 18, a few months before graduation, I had already been sober for over 2 years. That was around the time that I started aging out of most teen recovery programs. A lot of counselors that I worked with only focused on youth cases, so I had to start finding adult support groups. I grew up in LA, but not the touristy part. My neighborhood had liquor stores every few blocks and corner shops with thick plexiglass windows. Alcoholism was really common and normalized. So once the teen programs ended for me, I started going to early morning AA meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They were held in a small church near my school. I didn't have first period on those days, so it worked out perfectly. And after the meetings, I would usually stay for a couple extra minutes just to write in my journal or just sit in quiet. One morning, this guy stayed after the meeting and asked me what I was writing. I told him that I was journaling. He said he liked the idea and he wanted to try it himself. And after that, he started sitting next to me at every meeting. We would talk a bit afterward. He did seem normal and he was about my age. He knew that I was about to graduate and asked if I planned to keep coming to that group during the summer. I told him that I was not sure yet. I had just gotten a job across town and I was looking into meetings closer to where I would be working. And I could tell that he did not love that answer. Sometimes, you can just see disappointment on people's face. I used to talk a lot in those meetings. I did not go just to sit in silence, but I brought energy into that room. I like to think that I helped people feel a little better. I think he felt that too, and I think that is why he did not want me to leave. People have told me that I talk too much, so maybe I'm just flattering myself and everyone else wanted me to be quiet, but I like to think that I was making a difference. He asked again when I would be switching to a different group, and I said that I didn't know yet. I told him that I planned to keep coming through the end of the school year though. I do not remember if I ever told him the name of my school, but I always wore royal blue and gold. He knew that I went to a school nearby and just around the corner from the church, so it would not have been hard to figure it out. Then, in the last 2 weeks of senior year, everything got wild. We had senior ditch day, late night hangouts, sleepovers, goodbye parties, and many more. I missed the AA meetings at the church, and then I switched AA groups altogether. At graduation, everything was really great, but that guy showed up. It was so off. He did not know me like that. I had never invited him. We were not close at all. But there he was, smiling at me from the back like it was completely normal. He came over afterward and said he brought a gift. It was a box of chocolates and a note about how he would miss me. He said that I should drop by the meetings again sometime, and I uncomfortably said something like, "Oh, thank you." I never went back. That whole situation was just too weird. I did not want to see him again. And then, he showed up at my new job. I was working the cosmetics counter at a big department store. The cosmetics department actually had its own cash register. And the first time he walked by, I noticed him. And then, he came back the next day. And then the day after that. He never spoke or asked for help. He just wandered around near my station, looking over at me like it was no big deal. He did not even try to be subtle. Eventually, I told one of my coworkers, the type of woman who doesn't play. She walked right up to him and asked what he thought he was doing. She called him out in front of everybody. She said she knew exactly why he was there and that it was creepy and toxic. A few shoppers turned around to see what was going on, and his face turned red, and then he walked away without saying anything. We told our manager afterwards. Then the manager was glad that we spoke up, but then reminded us to let her know right away next time. Well, there was no next time though, since he never came back. I have not seen him since. Hopefully, he got bored and then moved on. I do not really care to find out what he wanted. I was in my 20s at that time, young and full of ambition. At that time, I was a raging alcoholic and drug addict. So, my memory's kinda hazy, so I do apologize if most details aren't there and major other events are left out. But I've been sober for almost a year now. Anyways, I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah from Arizona, and I had gotten a job as a service tech. One of these jobs that I went on was adding devices for equipments on a string of gas stations, starting from St. George and slowly working my way up to the state of Salt Lake City, hitting every store that was needing devices. I cannot remember exactly where I was for the life of me. Somewhere between Richfield and another town, one of those small towns in between. I had finished the store late at about 10 to 11 p.m. or so, and I wanted to go to the next town over so I can continue my work in the morning rather than drive 2 hours in the morning. As I am driving down the highway, the Google Maps had told me to take this dirt road to get to the town that I was working in next. Hesitant on why this was a route, I turned left into it. A long dirt road with nothing around me, pitch black darkness other than my high beams. About 5 to 7 minutes into my drive, my truck makes a sputter. It was an old 2008 work truck, a piece of shit really. I cursed under my breath and I put it in park. I lifted the hood and nothing seemed to be wrong. I have mild mechanic knowledge. Of course, I look down at my phone and I see that I have no cell service at all. I check my work phone, same thing. My only option here was to pretty much either wait it out until the daytime or find a spot where I can get a bar of service. So I took option 2. Also, I usually carry firearms, but in this trip, I had forgotten to bring it with me. Wielding a 10-inch pipe wrench and a Milwaukee flashlight, I walked into the desert determined to be rescued from the dark abyss. I'd like to add that this road was barely paved. I mean, you would not even take a truck on this unless you had to, or it led to a specific point. I wouldn't even call it a road, more of a trail. Brush and trees lined up the trail like a natural wall. I am not anxious or get scared very easily. I grew up in Arizona, so I was pretty used to the dark, quiet desert. But every step further from the truck made me feel more tense. I walked for about 10 minutes until I heard laughing. Kind of muffled laughing, something you would hear out of a kid's show, right behind me, so I swung around quickly. Nothing. My boots are sinking into the mounds of sand as I quickly just keep pushing forward. My heart is beating out of my chest like a ticking time bomb, and I hear it again, but closer, louder, like if it was 4 to 5 feet from me. I am fully sprinting into the desert brush and sand now, eyes darting like lasers around for somewhere to hide. I do not believe in paranormal or aliens or anything like that. I just figured that it was some deranged desert hobo or something, or maybe some sort of drug addict. The adrenaline was coursing through me. I hid behind a rock that was nearby. I crouched down on my right knee, and it was hurting because of all the rocks on the ground, but I didn't care. I needed to hide. The rocks was one of those 3-foot-ish mound rocks. The moon was shining bright so I can see some things. And as I am scanning the desert, I see silhouettes of 2 people running. I can barely make them out, but my eyes had then adjusted to the dark abyss. And I forgot to mention that after a while of this running, I also turned my flashlight off to not give away my location. I hear them. They were talking, but I'm far away enough to not be able to understand what they were saying. I literally sent out a message to my family and friends saying that I love them and that I'm sorry for anything that I have done wrong in my life. Of course, it didn't send because I did not have any service, just a coping in a traumatic event, I guess. I am not a small guy. I'm 5'10", 230 pounds, but I was unarmed and outnumbered, and God knows how many others were out there with them and what they were planning on doing when I was found and helpless. I waited, but they did not leave the general location of where they were at, scrambling around like mosquitoes. And I had thought of the only thing that I could do. I grabbed 2 smallish rocks. I am not religious, but I prayed to God that night and I threw them far in a direction away from the truck and the road. I then hear them scurry away towards the noise. They were shouting at each other as they trekked through the desert. I slowly crouch walked through the brush back to the truck. I forgot to mention this earlier, but I heard another set of stomping after the 2 had ran. So there was confirmed 3 people in the desert with me. As I got closer, I could see the truck, and I felt like I was in heaven. Every step was closer to my salvation. My boots filled with sand with every stomp into the soft, cold sand. Branches and brushes stabbed me into my cargo work pants. I hear them tailing me, but for the love of God, I could not turn around. I did not even care to see who or what it was chasing me. I see the truck, and the truck driver's side door is completely open. I remember I had left it closed. I checked the back seat, and then I flung the door open more. I flew into the driver's seat in the truck and did the most stupid thing ever, but the only thing that I can think of. I started it. It took a couple tries to start it, but it cranked and then let out a roar. I threw the gear shifter in drive and I just drove out of there. And as I was driving, hauling ass down this dirt road, I see hooded people hiding along the sides of the road, ducking as I drove by. Scattering into the darkness, like roaches in a kitchen. I rolled down the window and I chucked my pipe wrench as hard as I could right at one of them, and then I sped off. I watched it do flips right into where they were. I yelled as I sped off into the pitch dark desert night, and trails of dust followed the truck as I drove. Silence. Nothing but me and my heavy breathing, trying to make sense of the whole situation. I drove until I had seen town lights. I was sweating, white knuckles on the steering wheel, gritting my teeth, going at least 75. I got into the small town at around 12 a.m. and I threw myself into a local 7-Eleven. Looking terrified, the cashier asked me what's wrong, and I just asked her to call the sheriff's office. The sheriff was some old burly looking man, and I'm someone who's covered in tattoos head to toe, so he treated me as a criminal almost myself. Turns out, some hose had burst. I don't remember exactly what it was though. I got into town and I called my boss, who was upset at the late night call that he was receiving. He was shocked at what I said and said to call the sheriff's office and mechanic. The mechanic guy was super nice and didn't charge me for the repair. The cops? They weren't much help. They basically looked at me like I had been up for too long and that I was hallucinating. I was not. He then asked me if I had taken drugs or have drank, and barely wrote anything on the report. And the mechanic was telling me that he had never heard of something like that in the area. I stayed in a motel that night. I believe it was Motel 6, but I can't remember. And I swear I didn't get a lick of sleep that night after I showered the dirt off of me. I ended up returning home early, and I quit this job later down the line for other reasons. I have since moved out of Utah to Florida. A photo I had taken on this service call came up and reminded me of this story, so I just had to write about it. I just had to tell someone. Was this a robbery? Were they trying to hurt me? Did they see the work truck and say, "Ooh, expensive tools and copper"? I have no idea. I'm just curious, who do you think these people were, and why were they hunting me like an animal? Has anyone had a similar experience? And how close do you think I was to being murdered in the desert? P.S. The truck was looted too. I remember that all the wire, pipe, and some power tools were taken. I believe the town that I had gone into was Parowan, and for the life of me, I cannot remember. We humans are not afraid of being alone in the dark, but finding someone else in the dark with us.
And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared, because your fear feeds me.